Today on Nerd and Normal, computer and phone maintenance, what actually needs to be done and what's just a waste of your time.
Welcome to Nerd and Normal with Matthew and Gareth, opening your mind to the world of technology. So let's get started.
G'day Matthew, how are you today?
Not too bad, Gareth. We had a great week last week with Dr. John Irvine, and today it's just you and me again.
Yeah, I was worried about that. I thought, will I give it a miss? Or, if I give it a miss, he'll take over the program like he tries to anyway, and there'll be no need for a normal. It'll be just nerdish throughout the hour. No, we're going to... It's great to see you.
It'll be nerd and...
Yeah, nerd and no one's listening. The first big Windows update occurred on the 13th of January. Now, it's fixed some things, I believe, but it's left a few question marks. What's going on?
So, maintenance is a hugely important thing with computers, and Windows updates are a huge feature of your maintenance you've got to do with your computers. Unfortunately, Microsoft doesn't maintain their maintenance very well, with so many errors created. Not just the ones documented that people have talked about over the last few weeks from Microsoft, but I've seen other ones as well recently too. There's been... The one update has released two separate updates after trying to solve the problem. What happened years ago was Microsoft would actually physically test their updates on multiple computers before they're sent out. Unfortunately, those days are long since gone. Microsoft these days tests things virtually on a virtual computer and then sends them all out to the internet and hope they don't break things. Unfortunately, quite often they do.
So what are some of the bugs that have crept in with this new system? What should I be on the lookout for?
So the big one, the main one right now affecting people that's hugely important is your computer won't even turn on. The computer says there's no boot device. That one there's been finally admitted to by Microsoft in the last few days prior to us recording this. And it means that what happens is your computer thinks that drive C, where Windows normally lives, is now a different lettered number, different lettered drive. It goes from drive C to becoming drive D, for example. And the computer says, I can't find Windows. There's no drive C. And so it just goes through a loop saying, where's the drive? Where's the drive? The drive's still there. All the files are still intact, but the letter allocated to the drive has been changed.
Does that mean if that has occurred, if I've turned my computer off, and that was one of the bugs that my computer would have, if I turned it back on and it couldn't boot up, well, how do I get it fixed when it won't boot up?
So there are ways to re-give those letters to those drives again, reallocate the drives to the letters. Sometimes you got to, other ways of doing it is you can get there and tell the computer to roll back the updates, which sometimes solves it. But otherwise you've got to use a feature called disk part to completely reallocate letters. It's a complicated procedure, but it's also one that can be fraught with danger. So it's something that should be done only by a professional, but it is a way to get your computer back the way it's supposed to be, thanks to updates doing untold grief because things aren't tested properly.
But if it won't boot up, how do I do those fixes? It says, I won't boot up. Sorry, go away. Ring nerd.
That's the thing. You got to ring a professional to come out and do it for you. I would not tell a single person, here, you can go and do these. Follow these steps and it'll guarantee the solution, because it can't. It takes so many steps. A professional needs to get there and do it for you. It's not fun, not pleasant at all.
That has to be done on site. You can't do that remotely because the computer won't boot up and you can't dial in.
Exactly right. That's the problem. It's a case of, you think there's so many different remote services these days that would love to get there and say, yeah, I can sort it. They can't. They need to be physically there in front of your computer doing it that way for you.
What about iOS 26? I know when the first one came out, it caused all sorts of problems, particularly with your phone. Now there's a second version of... are there still issues with Apple's iOS 26 point whatever?
There are still huge issues with the iOS 26 system, and luckily it's now been promoted more places than here that people should not, if they can, not upgrade at all to 26 system. Whether it be phones not working properly for missed calls, phones not working properly for changing between different apps. There are so many different faults with iOS 26, and they're slowly doing little incremental updates to sort of solve the problem. The biggest issue comes down to now, even Telstra have said, do not update your phone to the latest version of iOS 26.
While you're there, I'm just opening up my phone. Where do I phone? See, this phone is... where do I find what system is mine?
So if you go into settings in your
Yep.
phone and then
And
you go to general.
okay, in general, I've opened general about. I'm currently on 26.2.1. It updated itself without me asking it to.
Yep, and
So
this is
are
the
you-
problem. You now face the issue of Telstra have said just recently that you should not update the phone to the latest version because their network has issues with that version.
Oh, great.
So what happens is Apple tricks people. So I usually tell people, if you get an Apple phone, the first thing you want to do is make sure you turn off automatic updates. You go into settings, you go into general, and you go to system update, and you turn off automatic updates.
Settings. This is called Nerd and Normal actually working on the actual web page. All right.
Doing it all live right now.
So general now software update.
That's the one, software update. And you want to make sure all those things are turned off.
Okay, updates. Green has gone. Automatically download, gone. Automatically installed, gone.
So
they're
what
all-
happens, they should all be turned off. Your phone will still check for updates, but it will ask you, do you want these updates? And you can say no.
Okay, and I've got to do that on any Apple device, my watch, my iPad. Okay,
All
great.
devices should be turned to off. That way they'll ask for the updates. The problem occurs, though, when they do updates these days with Apple, more so with Apple than anybody else, is they'll turn those back on again. So prior to last year, when 26 was installed on your phone, I got you to turn those things off. And again, after 26, you turn them off again because I walked you through. Off air, we walked through how to do that. But again, they've been turned on by themselves. It's actually now a feature you got to, as part of your maintenance of your phone, go in and check that they're turned off on a regular basis.
Now that means, because they do updates about at least 4 times a year. So that means I've got to keep checking to see if they're off, because if you're going to turn them on automatically, I'm not going to know that unless I look.
Exactly. Well, it's not just, it's more than 4 times a year. They do it on a regular basis. And the problem is, the more often that they do them, the more often they get change settings on you, the more often problems will occur. So yes, it's important to go in there with a phone, with an iPhone, and check that those things are turned off. Yes, you'll be told there's updates, but you can then decide when to install them. And for me, I always say the same thing to everybody. After 2 to 3 weeks of the updates being there, that's when you install them, not before.
Oh, so the fact that I've got 26.2.1 on my phone right now, which was in the last 2 or 3 days, if the phone is still working, I'm okay.
I wouldn't
Maybe.
say that. For the time being, you're okay. But I
Okay.
can't guarantee an update from Apple or an update from Telstra won't cause issues on the Telstra network. I'll actually put here right now the link for the Telstra website where they tell you about the actual issue with Apple phones and the latest update. That way you can see there, yes, there is an issue with Apple phones that Telstra does know about.
Okay, well, that'll be down below, will it?
It'll be on the screen, but also, yes, in the show notes as well.
Okay, but if we then go straight into your suggestions for phone maintenance, I would have thought the very first one was update OS and apps. Make sure they're updated.
No, when it comes to apps, yes, by all means. With apps, should be updated on a regular basis. So if you're on the Android system, you go to the Play Store, and in the Play Store, you have ability in there to update your apps from the top right-hand corner where your little icon is with your name or your face. And you can go into there and update them. When it comes to iOS devices, Apple devices, in the App Store, you go into, again, the top right-hand corner where your account is, and from there you can update all the apps on the phone quickly and easily.
Okay, well, I like to do this test as we are talking, so I open up apps. Top right-hand corner is a picture of an ugly normal. I click there. Apps, click that.
Once you go into that picture of yourself, in your case,
Yep.
it actually, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see all the apps that are waiting to be updated.
Update all.
And that's how you got to do it. That updates the apps. The apps are important. The actual system running the phone isn't quite so important on a regular basis. The apps are what are controlled what you do with your data. So say, for example, the banking website, the banking app. That's updated by the bank themselves. If there's a security breach with the bank, they update their app, makes you safe and secure again.
Okay.
When it comes to the phone itself as a whole, that's the important of doing the system updates, which hopefully don't cause you grief. But again, if you wait 2 to 3 weeks after getting those updates released, and then you do them, all the bugs have been ironed out. They've pulled the update, they've put them back on the internet, and now they're safe.
Okay, what about managing storage? What do I do there on my phone?
That's a huge one. So that comes down to, again, inside the settings of your phone, inside the general section, it has the actual iPhone storage capacity. You go into there and you can see how much space you have used, how much space you have free.
Okay, well, for the sake of someone watching you, we're doing this as you speak. So I go into General, then I go into iPhone storage, and it says 195.77 of 512 used.
Yep. So you'll be able to see below there will show all the different apps you've got on your phone, how much each of them takes up. So you can then decide, do you need all these apps you've got listed here? Do some of them take up too much space? Does Facebook take up 16 gigabytes of space? Yes. Doesn't need to, so you can wipe it off the phone, delete it off the phone at that stage, then reinstall it to get some more space back. The biggest issue with all devices these days, it used to be mostly an issue with Android, but now also with iPhone as well and iPads, is the amount of space taken up by the iOS or Android systems themselves. To the point now where they actually create their own temporary files that sit in the background taking up space.
Yeah.
The only way to overcome those problems is to actually restart the device. Not turn it off and turn it back on again. That's not it. It's got to be a full restart, which for most devices, the current ones anyway, it's you got to do the volume up, volume down, and hold the power button in until the Apple logo comes up, for example. For older devices, it's hold the home button and the power button till the Apple logo comes up. For the Android devices, it's the volume down, the power button held at the same time, so it gives you the option to restart. There's so many different restart options. What I'll do is, rather than talking through, I'll put them up on the screen now. That way it explains each of them for all the different devices. With Android devices, I can't emphasize enough, if you haven't already done it, go into your settings on your Android device, just do a search for button in the settings of your phone, and make sure that your side button is set to long press, power menu. It's normally set by default from long press for Bixby if it's Samsung, or Gemini, or some other AI feature. Change that long press to power menu. That way you can restart your device just with the one button.
Okay. I will look forward to reading all that below. So check out below. He'll put it all there and he makes sense. What about battery health?
So that's not as big an issue these days as it used to be. These days, the phones are getting better with their battery usage compared to what they used to be years ago. You'd have to get there and close all your apps. The Android and the iOS system now actually understand that people leave all the apps open. And so they background task these things. So it pauses them all and it's put in the background. It's still, in theory, running, but the battery performance that it used to do when they were sitting like that is long since gone now.
So when you are using an app, using multiple apps, when you've finished using them, and I've got the Apple phone, do I swipe up and then get rid of all of the apps that have been opened? Does that put them to sleep?
That closes them completely. So in theory, you do that. That way the apps will work properly themselves. They don't take up any more battery use by sitting there, but it means that the apps themselves will just work a bit better next time you go into them.
Okay. What about, I have a friend who has on her car keys, there's a little device where she can find her phone. What about things protecting your phone, like having a thing called Find My Phone or Find My Device or whatever? How does that work and what do you do?
So Apple's Find My is a great feature. It's a case of it can find devices, it can find those little Apple tags from all over the place. I'll explain first how Apple tags work. So Apple tags have a small battery in it, just a normal little watch-sized battery like this one here, for example.
Yep.
That only gets used when the Apple tag actually gets pinged by a device. They have Bluetooth always running, but it only gets used by the battery when it's near an Apple device. So that's the reason why they can be sent all over the world in a package, and they'll say where they are different times, because any Apple device, whether it be yours or somebody else's, get a little message from Bluetooth from those Apple air tags to say, I'm at this location. That phone that it speaks to, or the iPad, then sends the details of that air tag to the Apple system, which then sends it back to your phone again. It's all done by GPS. So when it comes to individual phones, the phone always knows where it is thanks to GPS, same as the iPad. So when you say find my phone and you're on the iCloud website, for example, trying to find your phone again, it'll get there and say, oh, the phone's at this location, show you roughly where it is with GPS. And you can then say, okay, make it make a sound because I've lost the phone. It's in a drawer somewhere. The phone starts making a sound and you can then find it. When the phone gets lost or stolen, that same website, iCloud.com, can also be used to lock the device. As long as it's turned on and on the internet. That's the important thing. It can be made to lock it or wipe it. And that's what is also then used by law enforcement to try and track down stolen phones. However, if the phone is not on the internet and not turned on, it does nothing. It needs to be powered for those things to work.
So you'd have to hope that the person who finds it and or steals it has it turned on. Otherwise, forget it. You've lost it. It's gone.
Yes, but even if you get their new lock or wipe the phone, that marks that phone as being lost or stolen. With Apple themselves, that person tries to sell that phone on the black market, for example. That phone then can't be reactivated because you're the official owner of it. Apple knows that. And when the phone's first activated, when it's been set up from scratch, it checks with Apple. Am I lost? Am I stolen? If it comes back with yes, I am, that phone is a paperweight.
Okay. What about backing up on your phone? You don't have an external device to plug in like you do with a computer on another drive. So how do you back up your phone? Only to iCloud for Apple?
I am a huge advocate for not using iCloud. For me, I don't like spending the $1.50 or $3 you got to pay these days for iCloud. For me, your best bet of backing up your phone is getting the charging cable used to charge the phone up, plug it into your computer. If you're on Windows, open up iTunes. iTunes backs up your phone to your computer for free.
Oh. Okay.
If you're on Apple, if you open up Finder with your phone plugged in, same thing, backs up for free to your computer. It also then means should you get a new phone or your old phone breaks and you've got to replace it quickly, you can plug the new phone into your computer. It'll see that it's a brand new phone and offer to restore your backup, all of your contacts, all of your messages, all your photos, everything to the new phone. And it costs you nothing.
Okay. All right. And you said restart the device. So again, to be actually practical and demonstrate, I have the phone in my hand and you said at least once a month?
Once a month you'll get there. It's not with all devices. Anything technology these days, everything needs to get restarted at least once a month to make sure it's working properly.
Okay. So it's the volume up, then the volume down, then the power button, right?
Exactly right. And that also says volume.
Okay,
It's
right.
quick press. So it's quick press, then
that.
Long press. And you don't let go of the power button.
It says slide off to power off.
No, so you've let go of the power button. So it's volume up, so quick press, and then you hold that power button until the Apple logo appears.
I'm holding.
You just keep on holding.
Oh, now it's gone black.
Keep holding.
I will not take my finger off this phone, even if it pushes through to the other side of the. There's the logo. Can I take it off now?
You let go now. There you go.
Okay, and it's going to restart.
So that gives the phone the best chance of keeping its memory and storage empty because all the temporary files that Apple creates on your phone get wiped when you do one of those things. So that should always be done on a regular basis is completely restart your phone. Not turn it off and turn it back on again. Not that sliding thing that doesn't do the job. It's got to be complete restart.
So does that mean when you sometimes have a problem with your iPhone and turning it off and turning it back on is a way of fixing it, which is not what you just said, it's more sensible to actually restart it?
Yes. Well, you think about a computer these days. People always say, I'm going to get there and turn the computer off. If the computer's not set up properly, when you go to turn it off, it's not actually turning off. The power gets cut, but if it hasn't got the settings correctly put into it, it's saving parts of the Windows that you've got, the issues you've got with Windows to the hard drive and using those problems to restart the computer again. That's the reason why if I've got a computer I'm trying to work on and it's working really slowly, I had actually today when I was working with someone, it was taking forever to restart because there was issues with the computer. So rather than sit there and wait, just pull the power. It kills it completely. You can't pull the power on a tablet or a phone though, because they're all enclosed these days.
Yeah.
So that's why they have that feature where you actually get there and restart it, a hard restart using those button presses.
So with a computer, we'll get to it when we have computer maintenance, but with a computer to do what you do on the phone, you've actually got to pull the power out of the wall.
It is the easiest way of doing it if it's a desktop computer. If it's a laptop computer, you just hold the power button down for about 10 seconds, does the same thing.
But if it's a upright PC, you've got to pull the power out of the wall.
Yeah, it's the same as and quickly touching on it, but not dwelling on this too much right now. But when you are doing or when Windows is doing an update to itself, it says the same thing. Don't power off doing an update. You shouldn't do this, but I get very impatient sometimes. And sometimes...
Oh, really?
And sometimes people have little mini blackouts that affect one power point in their house. Because if the computer's trying to do an update and sort of gets stuck on that don't pull the power out, it's trying to work on files. There's no reason why you can't yank the power out at that point in time, and the computer will just get there and restart when you plug it back in and pick up from where it left off.
But you turn the computer off, surely, before you pull the power point out, or do you leave it turned on and then pull the power point out?
I leave it turned on and pull the power out. If it's been more than 5 minutes of saying, don't unplug the power, don't turn it off, that's too long, the power gets pulled.
Okay, I've got a few things to do when we finish today. Sorry, that's the restart. Is the same process to restart an Android?
Android should, with the Android, depending on how the system is set up. Like I said, if you go into the settings in Android and you've changed that side button to be power menu, then no, you literally just hold the power button down like you used to do on the Apple device, and it will give you the option of power, of turn off, restart, emergency. You just hit the restart, does the same job. If you haven't got that set up that way, you've got to hold both the volume down and the power button at the same time, and then it brings up that menu.
Okay.
It's a strange setup. It was done like the Apple one was set up, mostly to focus on allowing AI, so Siri or Google or those sort of AI features to work off a button.
And when are we going to go from Siri to Gemini with the Apple phones?
Later on this year, actually. Google has announced that later on this year, they've got the partnership now in place with Apple that, yes, Gemini is arriving on iPhones later on this year.
So will it not be no longer Hey S, it'll be Hey G?
Chances are it'll actually be still Hey S, but the actual background program will be Gemini.
Okay. All right. Update the apps we talked about. Restarting we've talked about. Backup we've talked about. What about clearing the cache on the phone?
That whole restart does exactly that.
Oh, okay. So I've done it already. I don't have to do that on the screen.
Again, the less you have to do these days, the better off you are. And a lot of things people used to think, I've got to go and clear this and clear that and do this. You don't. Just a simple task can do all those things for you.
Okay. Now to the computer. The big one. The one that sits on the floor or the one that sits on your desk. Keep the software up to date, but Windows updates and it's full of problems. So how do I keep the software up to date and know that I'm not going to have bugs?
This is the $100 question that no one can answer. Unfortunately, the updates people talk about quite often are for other things, not just Windows, but your antivirus, your browser, so Chrome, Firefox, those sort of other supplementary programs, they're the ones they're talking about, and those ones, again, should update themselves by themselves for the most part. When it comes to Windows, again, the updates are forced on you. But sometimes you get the choice to say, later, do it later. They're the times you want to try and say, do it later. One thing I have noticed, I'm going to put this on the screen right now, where you go into the Windows Updates section of the computer in settings, there's the option there to actually do updates as soon as they're made available. That should be turned off. Never have the computer do updates as soon as they're made available. Otherwise it will. The update gets released on the 13th of January, for example. You get it 13th of January. Problems
and all the bugs.
That's right. So the idea is have that feature turned off. Windows is then smart enough to say, well, hang on, you don't want this straight away. I'll wait for a couple of days. However, there are times where even that doesn't help because the update still comes through late enough that the bugs are still there and you used to get stuck with it. I was actually talking to somebody just last weekend in Camden in New South Wales where he actually had his Windows 10, like your system, update to the January update. And as part of the update process, Microsoft tries, for all the issues there are, they do try to keep things safe. And his user account information in his computer was saved to a backup system they have in place. But then when the update was completed, it didn't get put back in place like it's supposed to have been. All his files were still there. The computer still worked roughly the way it was meant to. But unfortunately, because the backup wasn't restored like it's supposed to be, his computer wasn't working the 100% way it used to do beforehand. And as always, all these problems they create with their updates can be solved, but should be solved by somebody in person there rather than remotely, because they all require really in-depth knowledge of how systems work. But also, if something goes wrong, the person can get there and correct it quickly.
Okay. What about storage and cleaning that?
So there used to be a program I recommended years ago called C Cleaner, which was used to clean the cache, was used to clean temporary files. These days, it is so heavily focused on advertising, I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. It also focuses a lot on cleaning the registry, something you do not want. If you don't understand the registry inside a Windows computer, you do not touch it. Full stop. Do not touch that section.
Is that the same as defrag?
No, I'll come to that shortly as well. So when it comes to cleaning the hard drive of a computer, cleaning the space up, these days I prefer to do things manually. So the program I use is called WizTree. It shows you pictures, graphics. Every square is a file. The bigger the square, the bigger the file, for example. From that, you can work out where all the space on your hard drive is being taken up. And if you find that the biggest folder on your computer's hard drive is the temporary file, guess what? That folder is temporary. You can delete it safely, no problem at all. If the biggest file on the computer is a Windows file, you don't touch it. It comes down to, if it's temporary, you can delete it safely. Anything else, you leave it alone. And mostly the space taken up is either your own files, which you can move off to a USB hard drive, or their temporary files.
So you're going to put that in the notes below too, yes?
Yes,
that
will be
site. That site. What about defrag?
You do not want to touch defrag with most computers these days. So I'll explain what defragging is. So when the computer tries to put files on the computer's hard drive, it looks for the first empty spot and puts the files there. If the file is too big for that spot, it breaks it. It fragments the file into smaller pieces. Think of it like an encyclopedia. If the encyclopedia has, say, pages 3 to 6 empty, and it wants to put an article in there about aardvarks, but that article is 6 pages long, it won't fit there. So it has to break it apart and put the next bit fit somewhere else. So what the hard drive did, it fragmented the files up, which then meant it had to load a file from here, 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 and here. These days, however, we're not using those sort of hard drives. So, and this is a good thing. So when it was to defragment the hard drive, it would get all those bits and pieces, all the files, then put them together and put them where they all fit. That's why it took time to defragment the hard drive, which then sped up the loading of things. That was good for the mechanical hard drives we used to use. These days,
with
however,
HDD file hard drives.
Yes, where these days we're using the solid state drives, which don't have that issue. They don't fragment files. It then leads to the next problem. If you force, which you can force, a solid state drive to defragment itself, 1, it won't do any benefit, but 2, will actually make it die quicker. With the solid state drives, they actually have a limited number of reads and writes. Mechanical drives have an endless life as long as the mechanical parts don't die in them. A solid state drive, however, has a limited lifespan of reads and writes. So the more work you make it do, so the more defragmenting you do on it, the lower its lifespan is going to be.
So don't touch it. Don't defrag.
Plus, not just that. Windows, since Windows 8 actually defrags where it needs to by itself. It's actually a feature now built into the task scheduler inside of Windows that it will defragment your hard drive. It'll check the hard drive for errors. It doesn't clean the hard drive, but it does check the hard drive for errors and does check the hard drive to make sure it's not fragmented if it's one that requires defragmenting.
Windows 8, that is. So Windows 10 does it itself as well. Is that what you're saying?
And so is Windows 11. It's all built in these days.
Well, Windows 10 has only got this year to last. What about the various startup programs, managing them? How important and how do you do it?
So for me, the startup programs should be minimal and only was what you need to start up with the computer. If it's not needed by you when you first turn it on, which is near on nothing, it should be turned off. For me, I always use the Task Manager. So I hold down the Control, Shift and Escape keys on the keyboard and bring up Task Manager. I go to the Startup section inside Task Manager, and if I don't know what it is, I leave it turned on. But if I do recognize what it is, so if it's, say, Spotify, you don't need Spotify with your computer starting up, that can get turned off. That way you only have the programs you actually need or the ones Windows needs.
So the on the bottom of my PC, looking at it now, in the taskbar down below, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, about 8 or 9 little icons. Are they all part of the startup menu, are they?
No, so that's, I was talking about Task Manager, you're talking about the Taskbar. Two different things, same similar name. But this is where the other thing is. People think that the number of icons on your desktop or on your taskbar affects computer performance. They don't. Not at all. If you're not opening it, it doesn't affect your performance. You can have the icon, you can have your whole desktop full of icons. It doesn't slow it down at all, unless you open up all of them.
Okay. You're going to put a whole essay down below for me to follow all these other things. So if there are too many startup apps, then that's going to slow things down. Is that right?
Yeah, because for two reasons. One, it's got to load up all those programs to start off with, which takes the hard drive's performance away from it. But also, your computer has a limited number of space in its RAM, its memory. So the more programs you have opening up, the more space the RAM ends up being used by these multitude of programs starting up inside of it. When it comes to the CPU, the brains, it can sort of dictate what's going to work where and what's important. But the memory doesn't understand that, nor does the actual hard drive. So that's where you'll try and minimize the startup programs to a bare minimum. Windows does have the option to try and do this by itself, but again, I don't trust Microsoft to actually do this the right way. So for me,
not when January 13th created a whole pile of bugs. So I agree with you, and there's no COVID injection to fix it. What about antivirus and security?
So these days, Windows 11, the antivirus built into that is actually really good. So you don't need to buy an antivirus these days. The Windows Defender inside of Windows 11 is actually a really good antivirus for most people to deal with day to day. Windows 10's version wasn't quite as good, which is the reason why people on Windows 10 should have another antivirus program running instead of Windows Defender. Usually a free one's all you need. Things like Bitdefender, Kaspersky when it was available. I'd recommend. I wouldn't recommend AVG, Avast, or Avira these days because I've seen too many issues with those. They're now owned by Norton. It's all the one company, and they're focused so heavily on advertising. Wouldn't recommend them to anybody anymore.
And they want you to pay for it as well.
And they trick you into paying for things as well, quite often. But with Windows 11 these days, you don't need to pay for antivirus or have a supplementary one. The one inside Windows does a reasonably good job. When it comes to updates, again, like the programs, they should update themselves regularly, and antivirus does do this usually multiple times a day, which is good because viruses and those sort of programs evolve constantly, and luckily these days they do get regular updates to all the definitions of the different programs that can be considered viruses.
So is Bitfinder a good free one?
Bitdefender is the one that I recommend everyone use if these days, seeing as Kaspersky has pulled themselves out of the free antivirus realm.
So in other words, you've got to pay for it now.
No, the one you've got, the Bitdefender, perfectly fine. But if you've got the Kaspersky free antivirus, you have it for the time being. It will eventually be taken off you because Kaspersky, who I did recommend in the past, have pulled themselves out of the free antivirus market.
Okay. Now, I know we've got to talk about backup and backup regularly, but let's talk about backup regularly for the computer maintenance when we talk about the various backups that we can have access to. What about physically cleaning the computer?
Yes, that's a big one. So every computer has fans inside of it. You should make sure the airflow for your computer is running perfectly fine. The killer of most things inside of a computer is overheating, just pure heat. So if your computer has air vents on the side, on the back, on the top, underneath, no matter where it is, you should be getting there and either dusting them out or even vacuuming it out. Don't open the case. Whatever you do, don't open the case because that can cause more grief than it's worth. Just make sure the dust is kept off the air vents as much as you possibly can.
Don't open the case. Don't open the case.
Oh, no, I've seen
exterminate.
I've seen cases of people opening the case, putting a vacuum cleaner inside their case and destroying components. So please don't be doing that. Let's just stick to the outside.
And do I leave my computer, my stand on the floor computer, turned on permanently, or do I turn it off every time I'm finished and unplug?
So in theory, your computer can stay on now all the time. Years ago, I'd say no, it should be turned off on a regular basis. Not so much for the hardware, but just for Windows, because Windows itself have what they call memory leakage, where it just sort of forgot to close programs properly and to give up the parts of the computer it was using. These days, not too big of an issue, to the point where you actually can leave a computer on happily running away for a week or more without a problem at all. But if you're concerned about power fluctuations, you're concerned about things burning out, you can turn it off on a regular basis. There is usually no massive issue with doing that at all, to the point where if you want to try and save some money on your power, yes, by all means, turn it off.
All right, backup. Firstly, before we talk about the different ways you can back up, how important is it to back up?
If you have just one copy of your files, just on your computer, you haven't got your files. So what Charlie Brown, who's been with us before, said, and I've said it as well, you need to have multiple copies of your files, so that way if something goes wrong with your computer, your files are safe. Usually, if you can, you want those copies to be off-site with somebody else. You have a copy with you, a copy with somebody else. Your house burns down, all of your files are perfectly fine and safe.
But
Otherwise,
aren't they on the cloud?
no, if you're going to pay for that service, they can be. But even then, I've seen issues where OneDrive, Google Drive, iCloud have become compromised and the files have been lost. So your best bet, you want to be in control of your files on your devices, one copy not with you. That way, if your house burns down, your files are still safe.
So I buy 2 hard drives, external hard drives, keep one in my drawer and put the other one in my safety deposit box at the bank or something.
Exactly. That's exactly right. You want to make sure that you have a copy of your stuff, all the important documents, all the important files you want to try and work on now in the future, from the past, somewhere safe.
Okay.
And that one there becomes your archival copy. You can then pull it out and update the backup on there eventually, but you have one working backup, you have the computer, and you have an archive backup. That's the safest way of being.
Okay, well, I obviously have one. I'm now going to have to buy another one so I can put it in my daughter's place or whatever. But having read some of the backup devices that are available, the 3 that seem to get the most frequently mentions, not in any order of importance, were the Google Drive, was the Paragon for customization and advanced data recovery, and Cobian backup. Now, take me through those 3. Which is best in your opinion and how easy to use?
So for me, it's always been Cobian because that's the one that you have full control of. It doesn't try to make files in a strange method that it understands. It just literally copies your files onto a hard drive in a normal file folder structure. You can go in there and see your files. It's also one you control. When it comes to Google Drive, that one there is fully online. So you only have your computer and the online stuff, and you can actually use those files. So if people have used Google Drive in the past as a backup process, they end up using the files and damaging them or losing them. They then lose their only file copies because they're living off their backup. So for me, it's Cobian because you're in control of it. It's your files, your devices, and you say what you want to put on there and when you want to do it.
And what determines the size of the hard drive you get to use one of those backup systems, particularly Cobian?
So you want to try and get a drive that's roughly 2 or 3 times bigger than your entire hard drive inside your computer. So that way you can only put on the backup your personal files. You can't put Windows or program files onto the backup. It won't work. So just your personal files go on there. The reason why I say 2 to 3 times size of your normal hard drive is that we can have more than one copy of your files on your backup. You can have an archive from 3 months ago, one from 2 months ago, one from this month, and one from today. All those different archive copies on the one hard drive, if it's big enough to store those. I've seen computers that have nearly 500 gigabytes of personal files on them, and a 4 terabyte hard drive fits them all on there. All those people's files go on there multiple times. That way they've always got all copies of their files.
So with Cobian, it won't back up Google. It won't back up Windows. It won't back up Outlook Express. What are the things it won't back up?
You're right. Any programs at all. So Windows, Chrome, Outlook, Office, any actual programs that are on the computer can't back those up because those need to be installed, usually from either a disk, going back to the old days, or from a download from the internet. And because of those need to install the program, it can back up the files involved, but it can't back up the program data, the settings inside the registry. Again, this registry is here. It can't back up that, nor can it back up all the hidden files on the computer's hard drive to make sure that will work on a new computer. That's where ghosting comes in. And ghosting your hard drive can be done, but not something you got to do on a regular basis. More thing that I would look into doing if moving you from one computer's hard drive to another computer's hard drive. All the rest of the computer parts stay the same, which doesn't benefit these days with Windows 10 dying. But if you're going from an old hard drive to a new hard drive, I can ghost that drive, what they call ghost.
And how do you ghost a drive?
With a program made especially for the purposes of copying that entire drive. Gets a copy of the drive, dumps it on a new drive. Doesn't worry about file structure or anything, just gets the whole information, zeros and ones, just dumps it over. Okay. Again, it's not a
something
thing
you recommend or?
No.
Oh, okay. So you don't recommend it?
No.
Okay, so Cobian is the backup system you want us to use. We've got to make sure we do all those things with the computer and the iPhone and just hope that the next update from Windows doesn't cause more problems.
No, but one thing you can do to not solve problems is like, comment, and subscribe to us right now. Hey, if you've got a question about maintenance, perfect time to ask us a question. Comment down below. What maintenance do you want me to talk about next time? Maybe there's maintenance you think I need to do this. This is the chance to get there and have your questions answered. We can do it on next week's show, or I can do it in the comments down below us.
And we'll also do it on next week's show.
I can do that too.
Yeah. You've shaved, I've noticed, almost.
Yeah, I had a quick shave this morning. That way I looked presentable today. Just for
This
you,
morning,
Gareth.
well, under the nostrils, there's still hair there.
Yes, it was a quick shave. I suppose get to you.
What did you use? A blunt razor?
No, I used the kitchen knife.
Ah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's what your wife would like to use. Mate, another fascinating insight into the needs of our 21st century technology. And I really enjoy this. I know that my knowledge is, I won't say minimal, I'll say non-existent, but you certainly do make it all very clear.
It comes down to it should be simple to use. You can do what you want to try and do on your devices, whether it be a phone, a tablet, a computer, anything at all. It should be yours to use in the way you want to try and use it and get the most out of it without the biggest worries about, have I got to do this? No, you don't. Simple things. Let's keep it simple.
See you next week, nerd.
See you, normal. Hang on.
Reboot. Pull the plug out.
Take 16.
That was the nerd unplugging himself and rebooting.
Yes.
They don't know what they're talking about.